Hello, everybody. It's James here. And I'm very much happy to say... Is it my overly dramatic intro already, Dutch?
That's it. I love it, though. Continue.
In a world where story time with Dutch Mantell didn't exist anymore for 8 weeks, but now we're back! And it's Dutch Mantell is back as well! How you doing, man?
Well, it seems like an eternity since I've been here. And if I sound different, yeah, I have some dentures that I don't have in this morning because of something I won't go into. But yeah, it seemed like it's been forever since I've been here. And I think everybody kind of knows the story now. They know that I got sick, then my wife got sick, and then we've been playing musical hospital beds for the last several months. And it's really taken a toll on me. So I didn't want to do this, but I took out a GoFundMe because American Healthcare, he was in the hospital as many times as I was, and my wife. After a while, it kind of depletes itself. And I was, I opened up a GoFundMe to help me out. And to my surprise, it has been responded to great. So if I haven't thanked all the people who have contributed to that, I'm thanking you now. And we'll talk about this in just a minute, but some people contributed that I didn't think would. I mean, you don't have to contribute anyway. You don't have to contribute anything. But Tony Khan contributed $5,000. Jimmy Cornette contributed $5,000. James, you contributed 1,000 yourself. Thank you very much. Chris Jericho donated 1,500, and they were several more people. Pat Trammell donated 500 just because I know him, but a lot of people donated, and if I haven't replied back to you, 1,800 or 1,900 people contributed. And I don't think I can sit down and write a thank you note to all 1,900 donations. But thank you very much because my wife is in the hospital. I don't know how longer she's going to be there. And there is a possibility that I'm going to have to go back in too. So after a while, it depletes what you've saved up to live on. And I didn't take it out, my daughter did. But thank you very much for everybody. I mean, everybody that contributed to that fund. And it surprised me. It's sitting at, what is it sitting at now? Have you checked it, James?
I'm looking at it right now, 98,473.
See, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Astonishing, I would say. We'll get back to the GoFundMe in a minute. I just want to say the same thing as Dutch has just said. Thank you so much. Dutch wrote to me on, a Monday evening or something like that, my time or your time, and just said, can you publicise this? And then I said, yeah, of course I can, because I had no idea that you'd done this. I made a video at 8 a.m. your time, and by the evening, it got to 60-something thousand. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was talking to Amanda, your daughter, who set up this, and she was giving me live feedback, just going, I cannot believe this. She was, I mean, I think she was in tears for most of the day, just the unbelievable outpouring of support that everybody's giving you is, I won't say baffling, but it's taken me aback so much that so many people loved the podcast, loved you as a wrestler, loved you as a performer, that they would think enough to give some money. And it doesn't matter if it's $5,000 or $5. Anyone who thought enough to spend money, anyone who thought enough to share, anybody who just sent positive messages, it was all hugely appreciated.
Well, very humbling too, because people don't donate because they don't like you. They donate because they do like you. And that surprised me to no end, because somebody asked me one time, are you a heel 24 hours a day? I said, no. It's an old Jimmy Hart expression. I don't work overtime. Because we used to stop at, when we'd make a town, we would stop at a 7-Eleven or something outside the town to get whatever we wanted to get. And a lot of fans would know that we would go there. But that's the worst time to try to be a heel. When you're getting out of the car even going into the matches, you can kind of be a heel then, but after when you leave that job, I stopped being Dutch and I went to being Wayne, and I would say hello to people, and because it doesn't cost you anything to be nice at all. And I think a lot of people appreciated that because I appreciated them not knocking my windshield out too. If I'd have got out, get out of the way, you son of a bitch! Pow! There it went. Reminds me of a story. This is story time with Dutch. Jerry Lawler, he told me the story, and I rolled laughing. He was coming out of the matches in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and there's a bunch of people, and he was a big heel, and they hated him, and had a bunch of people, and they backed up from Lawler, and he saw one guy reach down and pick up a rock, and Lawler saw him, and Lawler says, "Don't you do it. Don't tell a wrestling fan not to do something because that's a complete invitation to do it." And he went like, "I'm gonna put it through your windshield." He said, "Don't you do it. Don't you do it." And Lawler went around and got in his car and closed the door. And Lawler was telling him through the windshield, don't throw that. And he threw it right through the windshield, shattered the whole thing. Lawler said, "God damn it." He said, "I was so mad. I pulled it down in driver quick and floorboarded it, headed to him. And all of a sudden the car went boom, to boom, to boom, to boom." He didn't check, but they had already flattened four, four tires. And he's sitting there with four flat tires and a busted windshield. And I said, "What'd you do?" He said, "Well, hell, what could I do? I had to get out, call a towing company. He said, "I had to get all four tires before I could even move the car." And he said, "I could see through the windshield enough to make it back to Memphis." But he said, I never forgot that. And it is a funny story. Telling the guy, "Don't do it." And a crash right through the window.
To think if we'd said don't donate to your GoFundMe, who knows how much we could have
Hey,
raised.
oh, no kidding.
Well,
No kidding.
let's go back to the beginning. And I'm not saying when you were born or anything, but a couple of months ago. So it's weird timing really, because I joked that when you got sick back in December or late November 2023, I joked that you couldn't have picked a better time because we'd already recorded 4 episodes of the podcast in advance. So by the time I got back, you'd sort of got well again, which is an
Yeah.
amazing sort of weird coincidence. And then this time, I was off on paternity leave for a few weeks. And by the time I was ready to come back, Hurricane, is it Helena, was hitting.
Helena or Helene or
I mean,
whatever they called it,
Helena and Milton, sort of one after
and
the other.
Milton almost together, back to back. And I'm sitting down here in Florida. I'm in the hospital, and I'm laying there in the hospital taking all the medication, and still, and I got sepsis again. And I got advice: don't get sepsis, because the doctors told me the first time I was in there, told me that I had a 50-50 chance of beating it, which meant I also had a 50-50 chance of dying. But I don't know what it is about sepsis, but I didn't take anything seriously. I just laughed at the guy. Whatever, I've had worse odds or something. And I barely remember him saying that. And the first time I was in the hospital and the time you were talking about, there's a complete week there that I don't even remember. Nothing. They even gave me a blood transfusion that I don't remember. Now, how do you not remember that? I guess they put me out and transfused my blood, but I didn't know it. I didn't know it till the doctor told me almost when I was ready to go home. And I said, "I didn't know that." He said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Well, thanks for telling me." But, and I didn't really know how close I was to dying. And then I found out, and I can tell on my arms right here, the more you lay in that bed, you lose. The doctor told me this: you lose like 3% of muscle mass every day you're laying there. And I went, that's quite a lot. But I used to do a lot of tricep work, and they're back a little bit now. But it just drooped down till I could see what I had lost. So and the old saying is use it or lose it. It's true. Because if you don't use it, it's going to go away. And that's why. And if I'd have stayed in that hospital bed, I think 30 more days, I wouldn't have made it. But but I did, and I'm back, but I don't remember a lot of it. And I don't even know how many times I was in the hospital this past year.
Well, bef- I sort of got my wires crossed then because I thought the hurricane had hit first, but I remember now that you were already in the hospital when the hurricane did hit. So take us back a few days earlier then. So when did you realise you were feeling sick again? What happened? Because I don't know the story.
The first time or the
No,
hurricane
no,
time?
no, the hurricane time in the last month or so.
I forgot what happened. I just got the feeling. I just got the feeling. They say when you get septic, you're like you're on the nod all the time. You really can't stay awake. And my daughter noticed it again. Are you okay? And I was speaking gibberish, she said. So I went to the hospital and to the ER, and they sent me right to the hospital. So I'm back in there, and the hurricane's coming. I knew that. And then in that hospital, hospitals are built to withstand weather conditions. And so, and it was like this hurricane would never get through Florida. I never know. I've never heard of a hurricane coming out of Mexico, going across the whole Caribbean or the Gulf of Mexico, and then re-entering Florida and going across the state and coming out the other side. That's a distance of at least 1,000 miles. I've never heard that before, but it did. It rained and it rained and it rained. Now I'm worried about my house, and my house did get damaged a little bit. I had a big tree fall on the roof that I had repaired, but it was a bad time for the whole state of Florida,
Mm.
or the whole middle of Florida, Central Florida, and my area didn't get flooded, but like 3 or 4 streets over, it did. So, and the people were like in 3 feet of water, and it did a lot of damage, over billions and billions and billions of dollars of damage in the state of Florida. Plus, then this hurricane went up and went through Georgia, then hit North Carolina, and you saw what damage it's done in North Carolina. It's like the biggest storm I've ever seen in my life. And when it came through here, I was laid in a hospital bed looking out the window, looking at it. But all I was seeing was you can't see wind, but all I saw was rain, and you could see the trees blowing like 120-mile-an-hour winds.
So was it just sepsis as well? No, I thought you also had pneumonia later as well in the hospital.
I had E. coli.
Good, good, good.
I had that, and staph infection.
Jesus.
So I was reading. You get a review of your hospital stay, and I'm reading E. coli, sepsis. Then I read down, then it's staph, and I went, what? I didn't know I had all this stuff till I read my review, or it says what happened to you in the hospital. The doctors fill this out. In case you go to another doctor, he can read it and tell you what happened.
Mm.
But yeah, I came very, very close to not making the cut, not making the turn.
You kicked out at 2.9. Every wrestler loves a wrestling analogy when it
Oh
comes to health.
yeah, 1, 2, yo.
You're the king of the false finish this
Yeah,
last 12
yeah.
months, it seems.
And I don't want to take it back to wrestling all of a sudden, but it is this is a podcast about wrestling. But I think they kick out. I mean, they overdo that. Kick out right at three. Guys, shorten it down just a little bit because does the same thing, plus the face. God, the guy can't believe his opponent kicked out right at 2.9 on a three count. And I bet everybody said, oh, come on, guys, do something different. Okay, continue. Who else can we knock?
Oh no, no, we. Oh, trust me, there's going to be someone we're going to be knocking like a son of a gun in a bit. Let's talk about the GoFundMe a bit more then. So I don't understand quite how it works. So essentially, even though you've got good insurance, it reminds me of the Kevin Sullivan situation earlier this year, where so he had really good insurance, but he just got too sick for too long, and you only get so many credits or so many days per year.
Well, I found out you have a time limit, and they will. I mean, they won't kick you out if you're dying, but you're going to owe that bill. You're going to owe the bill, and it starts out at 150 a day, I think. Then it goes to 450 a day. Then after 30 days or whatever, it goes to, if you don't go to a nursing home, then I heard it goes to 850 a day. Now, who in the hell can afford that? Almost $1,000 a day. That's $65,000, not quite, but over 300,000. Nobody can afford that.
And that's times two. That's times two as well, because you and your wife as well have both managed to get sepsis at the same time. So just like it's tremendously awful fortune in that sense.
Well, and I never found out where the sepsis came from, or the E. coli, or the staph. I never found out, and they don't know where it came from. So now I'm sitting here. What is I don't and then I had a thorough cleaning of my house, and hopefully to if it was a germ or a virus lingering, they could clean it up. But I mean, you just can't walk in and say, "Oh, there it is, right over there. Clean that up, or clean this up," or you just and that's what life is. Now, granted, we only got a certain number of years to live, and that could have been my time that I missed. The second time could have been the time that I missed. And I can't remember right now because it really affects your memory. It really does. When I was in the hospital the first time, I thought I was in like North Korea or something. My daughter was telling me, he said, "You were talking about you were in North Korea." And I went, "No, I didn't." "Yeah, you were." She said, "I didn't know what you were talking about." And I said, "Well, hell, don't ask me because I don't know what I was talking about either." But anyway, it does affect your mind, and it affects a lot of things. And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I really wouldn't, because it's a confusing state to be in.
With the GoFundMe, I imagine very much so it wasn't an easy decision for you to make, because I just figured that's not the kind of thing that you would do unless you were really a wit's end kind of thing. Am I reading that right?
I paid out a lot of money this year, and I asked my daughter, I wish you wouldn't do that. But sometimes you do things you don't want to do. And this is not necessarily for right now, but it's for later on, in case my wife stays in the hospital or I have to go back. And of course, it won't last forever. But at least I got through this part of it with a lot of help, like the Beatles song with some help from my friends. What's that called?
Yeah, with a little help from my friends.
Yeah, was that a Beatles song?
Oh yeah, Sergeant Pepper. Yeah,
yeah, and really appreciated all the help that I got, and it is humbling. Like I said, people don't give you money just to give you money for the hell of it. They give it because they kind of like you and they want to help you out. And I've said thank you, and I can't say it enough. But 1,800 donations. So thank you, 1,800 people.
2,000 now. 2,000 people donated, it says. So
Really?
people are still donating. I'm just looking at the last minute, newest 32 minutes ago, 33 minutes ago, 40 minutes ago, 1 hour ago, 2 hours ago, 2 hours ago, 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago, 5 hours ago. And that's in the middle of the night. People are still donating. 1,976. When the GoFundMe first started rocketing up, what was your initial reaction? Because as I say, I text Amanda, your daughter, Dutch's daughter, to sort of gauge her reaction, and she was in just sort of like stunned disbelief that so much was rolling in. And I think the original goal was 20,000.
Yeah.
Was it?
And I didn't think I'd get 20,000. I would have been happy if I'd have got like 5 or 10. That's what I thought. Because I think Kevin Sullivan, when he did it, because his bills weren't stopping and he was going to have more medical care, I think it reached 54,000, I think. But in my wildest dreams, I never thought it would hit 20, really. But it kept going, and then you advertised it, and some more people picked it up, which really renewed my faith in the wrestling brotherhood. Because wrestling people, and I did this in an interview one time. I was standing in the middle of the ring, and I looked out at the crowd, and I did this in WWE. I said, looking out at this crowd, I see the backbone of America. I see the plumbers and the truck drivers and the doctors and the dentists and the cooks and the policemen. But these are the people who get up every day and they go to work and they pay their taxes, put their kids in school, and they're the reason that the country works. And it is. Because wrestling fans, to me, are the most loyal fans in the world. I mean, football fans aren't that loyal. Because if a team doesn't win, screw them. I'm not watching them anymore. But wrestling fans will hang on to the last minute, and then, yeah, they'll bail on you. But as soon as you do something interesting again, they come right back. WWE proved that when Triple H took over creative. And he started telling the story. And how many times have I said wrestling is story? Wrestling is part sports, part entertainment, mostly story. And when you tell a story that the people, I won't say conveniently believe in, but I mean, they can believe in it. They're not embarrassed to believe in it, but they'll come right back because they want to know where the story goes, where it leads, how it branches off. And it's like reading a book. A book has to have a protagonist and an antagonist. It's got to have a plot. It's got to take you right to the end. Except wrestling, guess what? Never ends. It never ends. 52 weeks a year, they're telling the story year after year after year after year, which makes you think that creative is so, so valuable to the wrestling enterprise. And they got to keep thinking. I mean, where something ends, when I booked, I never ended anything. I always kept it alive because the fans never forget. And I've seen WWE do this. Two guys hated each other, and then 4 weeks later, they're teaming up for no apparent reason. But if they had a reason, now that's a little different. Now you can make sense of what they do. But if you can't make sense of it, don't do it. But if you take your time, you can make sense of that. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
You ought to say, no, shut up.
No, it doesn't make sense.
Shut up, you rambling bastard.
We're going to get to rambling bastards in a minute, don't you worry. Just before I do, the top, and I don't want to harp on the top donors because, as I say, anyone who sent in money is wonderful for thinking as much of you as they did. to get on the computer, get on the phone, and put some money in. There's one mystery though. The top donor is anonymous. $5,500. Do you have any inkling who that is?
Nope.
Really?
I have no idea.
Any guesses, or because I've been trying to guess recently?
No, I have no, really anonymous. I have no idea. Nobody has emailed me or texted me privately and said, "Hey, I was the author or the donator of the $5,500 donation." Nobody has done that. And if they had, I couldn't tell you anyway, or I wouldn't tell you. And that surprises me because, I get a lot of anonymous, but it's $50 or $25, $75. But $5,500 is a pretty good little pop, believe me. But I have no idea who that is.
Yeah.
But whoever you are, I thank you.
You're going to get loads of people claiming it was them now. So it's like...
Well, then I'll thank a lot of people.
Quite a few anonymous $1,000 donators as well. But yeah, once again, as I say, all the money's going to Dutch's wife's continued care because she's just had emergency bowel resectioning surgery, which is, aside from the fact being incredibly high risk in her case as well, it's just a long, horrible recovery process as well. Dutch may have to go back into the hospital at some point relatively soon if his care needs to be continued as well, so it's all going to go to that. But as I say, it's just an incredible number, nearly $100,000 and nearly 2,000 donators. It's amazing. So I don't think there's anything else we need to say about that, is there? Or shall we move on, or is there anything else you want to mention?
Well, just that I appreciate every donation that was made by every person, and it surprised me and it surprised you. I remember you wrote not too long ago that you expected it to hit, the way it was moving, you expected it to hit 50,000 by the end of the day. Did you say that?
I may have done, yeah, on Twitter, maybe, yeah.
Maybe.
I couldn't believe that. I honestly couldn't believe that.
No, I couldn't either. And I thought, James is not going to hit that. It just won't do it. But it did. Again, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Do you know who the person who, if they started a GoFundMe, absolutely no one would donate?
Several people.
Well, let's call this one Dave Meltzer.
I knew it. I knew it.
So, Dave Meltzer, the Wrestling Observer newsletter writer, prolific, effluvia spilling out from his pen or typewriter or keyboard over the decades. Anyway, he wrote something in the newsletter about you and the GoFundMe. Have you read this in full?
Some of it.
Why don't I read it all?
I haven't read it in full.
Well, not the newsletter, but the bit pertaining to you.
I've read what you posted.
Okay, that's enough. So I'm going to read it here now, and I'm sure it'll come up on the screen soon enough. So essentially, Meltzer writes, you and your wife weren't doing well. There was a GoFundMe out. I'll quote this here. They had raised $64,200 with most of care, full stop. And then, just aside from the fact that he's already spelled your name wrong, and then he's just inserted a sentence, he then goes to, they had raised $64,200 with most of the top donors being anonymous. And the largest known donors were Tony Khan, $5,000, and Chris Jericho at $1,500. No mention of many anonymous people, no mention of Jim Cornette, who donated $5,000, that kind of thing. No mention of the anonymous person who donated $5,500. So that being said, with Khan, many have pointed out that Mantell as a podcaster was brutal to Khan, even being critical of him when the promotion was at its peak popularity. or popularity peak, and recently criticised him for the contract terms Swerve Strickland got on his recent deal. It is something when a former wrestler gets mad at a promoter who clearly can afford it for what he pays the top talent, and he was doing it after he knew the new deal was put together that was going to make the company exceedingly profitable. Wrestlers using the old school he doesn't draw money and not understanding that this isn't a mom and pop week to week business based on live event numbers, but one that is in a worst case scenario year would generate $250 million next year, and that most of that revenue is guaranteed ahead of time. It's difficult reading that out loud because it never scans well. So basically what he's done is, and I've said this on a video on WSI as well that a lot of people watch, basically Meltzer has turned the milk of human kindness of 2,000 people donating and basically turned it into a hit piece on you because you have been critical about AEW booking in the past.
Well, I try not to give anything Dave Meltzer writes any believability or credence. But that kind of pissed me off because all of a sudden, I think this speaks more of Tony Khan's humanity than it says anything about me. Even though, yeah, I have been critical of him, but isn't that my job
Mm-hmm.
to go on here and talk about the business? And yes, I have said that he needs more story, and he just doesn't need to put matches together and have them go 15 minutes for no apparent reason other than they're going to have a good match. I mean, I've seen acrobatics and I've seen gymnastics. I've seen the greatest moves in the world. Everybody has, if you watch enough wrestling on TV. But tell me a story. So I'm doing my job, but he's saying, oh, I blasted him. And I think it says much more about Tony Khan than it does about me, really.
Well,
Because it's like, how many people has Dave Meltzer knocked? So anyway,
you
if
just
somebody,
then at your lowest point.
no kidding, and you can knock me, Dave. I mean, but you're knocking my family now, and that is a no almost in any business. I almost died. My wife almost died, but yet you, to make a point that you don't like me, you got to come out and you got to blast me for that. So yes, I did say not flattering things about Tony Khan, but Meltzer, you've done a lot worse because you've had your thing going a lot longer than I have, and I was just basically doing my job. So he pisses me off. I can't quite get my thoughts together because
Well,
I'm still
well,
recovering from what he said. I would like to walk up on him. I can't now. I'm too old now. But I would just like to walk up on Meltzer and just slap the dog shit out of him. Really, because some things deserve a good hard slapping, not a punch, but a slapping. And I've read some of Meltzer's stuff. Yeah, I could knock that too. But and I've always said he is a good writer. He's a prolific writer, but he just writes too much, and he goes on and on and on and on. So I don't even know why people even pay attention to him anymore. But I don't even know why he had to get that in there, unless you said he had a score to settle with me. And why was that score? And you're right. You're on your analysis of it. Yeah, he's pissed at me, and
yeah,
he's been pissed for like 5 years.
yeah. Okay, so so we've talked about this before. Is this purely over a disagreement over how many people were at an event in Memphis back in the day, or am I reading something else out of it?
No, he was printing a bunch of misinformation, and when I tried to correct him, oh, he wasn't going to do that. I did this on Twitter when it was still Twitter. And all of a sudden, I blasted him a couple of times on there, and people were reading it, and he just blocked me out of the clear blue, and I've never heard another word from him. Now that's a chicken shit way to do. If he wants to defend himself, defend yourself, Dave. But he said, "Oh, I think he told somebody he was clogging up my Twitter, and he was doing this, and he was doing no. I was telling the truth, and you didn't want people to know it, Dave. I've left it alone for now, but I wish I still had the thread, but I don't anymore.
That being said, my video that I did a couple of days ago has done 125,000 views, right? Something like that. And there's no way he can't know about it. There's no way that he can't. Here's the thing: I don't think he will ever reference it, because like when he when he posted on a Wrestling Observer bulletin board forum this like screenshot of an Excel spreadsheet of AEW's expenses of 2023 or whatever it was, and it was just something that somebody made up, and then without checking anyone, Meltzer posted it as real, and then started analysing it. He even had the word guess, the actual word guess on it, and he still thought it was red. And the point was is that he's never acknowledged that because there's no defending it, but he won't come out and apologise. And I think it's the same with this. He probably won't ever reference this, that he's written this bullshit about you and tried to bring it back to AEW because he's fucking obsessed. Because he can't defend it. Because it just makes him look like the dickhead that he is. It's as simple as that. Now, let me... Yes, sorry, Dutch.
You call him a dickhead?
No, he's an absolute raging dickhead. And I don't know why. Because he just constantly... He's just this condescending fucking shit that he writes all the time to Twitter. I was like, oh, reading is your friend. Yeah, reading is your friend. Well, reading what you wrote, Dave, in that has fucking cost me a few IQ points. It was so badly written and so unbelievably just fucking poorly thought out just to settle a score with Dutch. Anyway, let me just also read a couple of things. One, okay, a couple of times we made fun of Tony Khan, but like when he's got bug eyes and he's looking around constantly, you know, and he's not very good at the news, you know, the post-show scrums, your favourite word.
But that's not a knock. I would have said, you know, he was sitting there like that.
I'd say that to you if you were doing that.
Yes.
It's like, man, you look like you had bug eyes and didn't know what you were doing out there.
No kidding. No kidding. I've said this about Tony Khan. The first time I met him, Jacksonville, Florida, he came up and introduced himself to me. I didn't know him from Adam's House Cat, but he came up and he introduced himself, and I found out about him. Very, very nice man, very nice guy, and I could tell by the way he was talking, he was a wrestling lover. He loved wrestling because I was still with WWE at the time, and he's from Jacksonville, so you know he didn't have to make a long trip to come over there. And I talked to him about 15 or 20 minutes, and he was asking me about wrestling and he said he wanted to get into it then. Of course, you hear that a lot of times, but I didn't even know who he was till I went back and I said, "Hey, who is that? Who is that guy?" And somebody told me who he was. And I remember he wanted to talk to Arn Anderson too. And he ended up, I said, Arn, a guy named Tony Khan out here, he wants to talk to you. And I think Arn had heard about him. And Arn went out there. Then I saw Arn talk to him for quite a while. But I had nothing but a positive impression of Tony Khan. And when he started the company, good for him. Now he can give some of these wrestlers, he can give them a job, give them a place to make some money, and he can see what he can do with it. But and some guys are good at booking, some guys aren't. Some guys are good at wrestling, some guys aren't. But I think I think Tony, and I've heard this, how can Tony book 3 shows at one time? I don't know any booker who could do that and not suffer burnout.
And also help run the Jacksonville Jaguars and Fulham Football Club as well. So he's got 3 full-time jobs, really.
No,
no one has said that he's not incredibly hard-working. Everyone I've talked to said he's really nice, really generous. I said it in the other video. I'd love to shake his hand and say thank you for what he's done for you. And obviously, as I say, he's a wrestling fan at heart, as we all are. And a lot of the videos that we do criticising the booking or production or whatever, it's not just blind hatred of the product. It is there's always a lesson. There's always constructive criticism or an idea of how it could be done or where something could go from there.
You can hate the content, but not hate the creator. I mean, I mean, Dave throws all that in together because what he was saying was Tony Khan was an idiot for donating to somebody who had knocked him in the past. But I don't know.
But not him.
Dave,
Not him. The product, ultimately.
Yes.
Now
I wasn't knocking Tony ever.
Now that being said, he also says that you had mentioned that critical of AEW, the peak popularity, if I can say that, because that wasn't true, because we started talking about AEW as soon as Brawl Out happened and CM Punk left, and then popularity sort of went downwards from there because CM Punk had left, and then they didn't really capitalise on it. That being said, he also says a video recently criticising contract terms that Swerve Strickland got on his recent deal. And it's like, yeah, we did do that because he hadn't been booked very well and he wasn't a very strong champion, but then he'd been given a huge amount of money. And then he says, even though AEW had been given a massive new deal, and it's like, well, by the time we made that video, no deal for AEW had been announced whatsoever. So that's a complete lie. And then he then also says, wrestlers using the old school, he doesn't draw money, and not understanding that this isn't a mom and pop week to week business based on. Right, okay, so what? I won't reread it all, but all that Dave Meltzer has basically confirmed is that he doesn't think Swerve Strickland draws money either.
No.
So
Basically, that's what he's saying.
So all he's done is criticise Tony Khan, criticise you, unknowingly criticise Swerve Strickland for not being a drawer and getting overpaid, or getting paid by someone who can afford to pay him a lot of money. He always has to bring it to AEW. Even, what was it, Nikki Bella, he posted not too long ago that she was a victim of DV, domestic abuse, and somehow he brought that back to AEW. Also, keep in mind that Dave Meltzer, the person who once wrote that a wrestler called, I think it's Shibata, had his brain removed and then put back in a couple of years ago. And it's like, maybe Dave Meltzer's had his fucking smooth brain removed, and they forgot to put it back in, and now he's just like, his body's just like some sort of just doing it automatically.
Well, I think he's totally off on a lot of the things he says. But if you call him out on it, it's like a personal attack on him. Listen, Dave, you call yourself a wrestling historian, I guess. But he doesn't give you the news. He gives you his opinion. Of course, the national news for years and years, on the national news, they've always given opinion too. But Dave beat them to that. So he wouldn't say this and this and this and this. He gave you his reasons behind it. And Dave had a sordid history in the wrestling business anyway, because I've known him a long, long time, and I met him for the first time, I think, in Smoky Mountain days. And he wasn't very friendly, because I don't think he's ever liked me anyway. And I've never liked him.
Unbiased news reporter decides that he hates somebody and then gives them unfavourable coverage while reviewing all the matches as well, to his own tastes.
He's full of shit.
Yeah, you prick, dude. What can I say? He was all right when I interviewed him years ago, but I think he's gone absolutely... The cheese has slid off his cracker, Dutch.
He blamed podcasters for AEW not doing better.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's our fault and Cornette's fault and Bischoff's fault for turning all the fans against them.
Cornette, he buries them. Bischoff buries them. But all of a sudden, he saves all his venom for me, the bastard. How can people see, if they haven't already seen, your interview or your message about Dave Meltzer? I highly advise watching this, because James, he defended me and him, both of us. And if I ever was charged with murder, James, you would be my defense attorney.
You know, I actually did study law for a couple of years. That's weirdly why I started writing a book. When I wrote the Owen Hart book, I'd just done 2 years of study at law, and I can't remember anything legal whatsoever, except for the fact that when I was studying for a degree level, of course, is that it got me to writing. and it got me to putting stories together. And it's weirdly studying for a law degree that I dropped set me up for writing books and creating a cogent argument. So in that sense, I think I'm actually pretty good at that. But if I had more time, I would have done that video better. I think it's still good, but I would have done it better.
No, I don't think you could have done it much better. But anyway, I highly advise watching this by James. Can you put it on the screen?
I'll tell you right now, WSI, Wrestling Shoot Interviews, and also on that YouTube channel, because that's been dormant for 3 months now. I've done the occasional video, that's about it, but it's been dormant for about 3 months. We're coming back with a bang this week, maybe this week. I think we're coming back with a bang with new interviews. We've got some big names out there coming as well, so look out for that. Right then, let's talk about some news. This one just came across. I didn't even write all of it. I just wrote half of one sentence, so we'll probably have nothing to say. Diamond Dallas Page said that MJF couldn't use the diamond cutter as a finisher. Have you ever gone through that in your career where either somebody's, apart from Jake Roberts stealing the short arm clothesline off you, but like, has that ever been much of a thing where, you know, if you go into a territory in Memphis and it's like, well, you know not to use the pile driver, but has anyone asked to borrow a move from you or told you not to use a move?
No. Jake, he picked up that short arm clothesline for me because I used it on him and he loved it. Then he ended up, of course, beating me to WWF, and he made it famous, and he did it perfect. He did it great. So, but now when people see the short arm clothesline, it's not from me, it's from him. Because they saw it first, because WWF had, they had a bigger TV coverage than what Memphis had. But I always thought that was, if you were in the same company together, don't use the same finishing maneuver. And that's only respect. That's only self-respect from your fellow wrestler, or showing him respect. Don't use his finish. And what a lot of guys would do, they would use the finish and the guy would kick out on. And that's a double FU. So, and Diamond Dallas, he can use whatever kind of logic he wants to do on it. I don't agree with it, but hey, he said it, so he must believe it.
Well, he didn't invent it, I'll tell you that. I think it may have been Michael Hayes who invented it, or Jimmy Jam Garvin may have invented it, in fact. I don't know who was talking. It might have been Stevie Richards, in fact, who actually, or Mark Mero, maybe. Someone said that they saw him do it first on TV.
It was a long time before that, I think.
That being said, this is from PW Mania. AW star and pro wrestling veteran QT Marshall appeared on Hey EW to talk about a number of topics, including how fellow AW star MJF asked WWE Hall of Famer DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, if he could use the Diamond Cutter finisher, but DDP turned MJF down and didn't give him permission to use it. So he said no? Yeah. Okay, well, DDP's long since retired. He didn't invent the move. Would you just ignore him and do it anyway?
I would. I mean, it's not copyrighted. It's not patented. He doesn't have any kind of ownership over it. It's just a move. So, I don't know.
So, apparently, the reason is that DDP chose QT Marshall to have the Diamond Cutter. But, yeah, I'd just be like, that patent's expired, bitch. I'm using it now. Easy. Anyway. Right, we'll move on to news proper, and this is sort of really the biggest news of the last couple of months, and we're back to AEW. So AEW's incredible new deal. I won't bore you with the facts apart from a couple, because we'll be here all day from it, but essentially AEW is now getting $185 million valued at, because it's not all cash injection, per year when all the elements are taken into account. Under the new deal, AEW shows Dynamite and Collision will remain on TBS and TNT respectively. Rampage is being cancelled, we believe.
Really?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it does nothing, and they don't put any effort into it, so they might as well get rid of it. Who knows? I was thinking, should they take that 1 hour and then add it to Dynamite?
I think if AEW takes any hour that they have and put it somewhere else, it wouldn't perform any better because the content is the content. No matter how well intentioned the content is, I don't know about you, but I'm not going to watch a match, watch move after move after move. I'm just not going to do that because it doesn't interest me.
Well, there's actually precedent. Because Rampage, I don't know if it was a year ago, whenever it was moved to Wednesday directly after Dynamite. And I think it like doubled the viewership number of what Rampage would have got on a Friday night as a standalone show. So what if you instead move that hour from Friday, put it to Dynamite, and then just had a 3-hour Dynamite? Now, me and you, and I suspect a lot of people out there, think 3 hours for a TV show, wrestling TV show, is far too long. But the fact is that apparently there's enough people out there who don't think it's far too long and will sit through the entire 3 hours. So if you're going to give the same amount of time.
But not many, believe me. But not many. A 3-hour, hey, when I see a movie that's 3 hours, I go, I mean, I wouldn't go to it. 3 hours is a long time to watch one product. It's a long, long time, and I'm not going to do it. I mean, I'm a football fan, so I'll watch the football game, even though they're exciting. And when they go over 3 hours, I'm getting a little itchy. I'm saying, hey, we need to wrap this up, guys. Do you finish? Let's go. Let me get out of here.
That's because there's only 60 minutes worth of actual action. And they just stretch it out over 3.5 hours, man.
Well, that's why I say I cannot watch it just for the moves. Tell me a story. Throw me some interviews in there. Do this. Make it interesting. But just watching a match over and over, and I think most of the wrestling fans agree with me because they get bored. And when you get bored, if you were really watching the channel changing, your rating drops and drops and drops. That's why they rated every 15 minutes. And you'll see what was going on here, going on here, going on here. But most of it will drop, I would think.
I think you're right on the 3rd hour. I mean, with Raw, it's always the lowest, or almost always the lowest rated hour, but it's still better than what Rampage would be getting. But we don't know that's happening.
Raw went back to 2 hours, right?
Yeah, until the end of the year. Then when they go back to Netflix, there'll be 3 again.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you some more info about this.
Let me ask you about Netflix. Any
Yes.
commercials? Any commercials there or no?
I believe yes, if you're on the lowest Netflix tier. If you are not on the lowest Netflix tier, then no adverts, no commercials. But if you're on the like Amazon Prime, they'll just insert the advertising like they do a broadcast television show on that sense. Let me give you some more information. AW programming will be streaming live on Max simultaneously for US subscribers. That'll be starting in January 2025. Tony Khan is impossibly happy about this, and I don't blame him. That's a huge bump from what he was making before. And,
Yay, Tony!
Hey,
well,
he can afford $5,000 now.
Hey, Tony!
I actually want to get to, apart from Warner Brothers Discovery, how's he pulled this off, quite frankly, Tony Khan? Because we were thinking the absolute best case scenario was all in value of this deal 175 or 170 million a year, and then he's even exceeded that. And at the moment, as we say, the ratings aren't doing that well, ticket sales aren't selling that well, but somehow he must have had a heck of a team to knock out this deal. It's amazing.
Well, apparently he understands it a lot better than we do, or I do. Because you sent me that thing you were going to read. It's long and drawn out, and TBS and Warner Brothers and this. It all runs together to me. I don't know how he did it, but Tony, congratulations. But somehow, Dave is going to take that and say it's a backhanded compliment that I thanked him for it.
No, he won't mention you for a while. He won't mention you for a while because every single post he did, or numerous posts that he has done in the past few days, someone has written on it, how about you start talking about Dutch Mantell? So he keeps getting reminded of you and then is ignoring it. So he will continue to ignore you because he knows he's in the wrong. That being said, back into AEW. Production is going to be improving in 2025. This has been maybe
Now,
my
wait a minute.
biggest bugbear and yours.
Right. We talked about the production. I mean, if Tony Khan, he's a billionaire, so he can afford the production that WWE does. You watch WWE, I mean, if you've never watched wrestling before and you watch WWE SmackDown or Raw, you gotta say, wow, look at it grabs you right off the bat. They're just their production, their intro to their shows. So Tony, and that was one of our complaints about his show, is hey, let's brighten that back up a little bit when you do those interviews in the back. Hell, let's make it look like it's belonging on a multi-million-dollar show.
So, Mike Mansouri, a name that people have heard here, there, and everywhere, I think recently. He's now AEW EVP of Global Production. Here's the quote. The idea was getting more IP based with everything that we are doing. How can we get AEW to be more towards the cutting edge? That's always the challenge of our line of work. We're not quite sport, we're not quite entertainment, we're a lovely hybrid. How do we take our form of content and intertwine technology into it that leaves us in the cutting edge and allows us to be trendsetters as opposed to followers? I think he was also maybe hinting at more licensed music, which would be fantastic. Hopefully better lighting and better production, and as you say, in the back as well. And something else. AEW wants to have live audiences to have a more special experience. Continuing, Mansouri indicated that All Elite Wrestling plans to present a more sports-style show to fans who attend live shows using the revamped production to aid in the process. Starting in 2025, here's the quote, you'll see more of a sports-style presentation in arena in terms of being able to entertain the audience when there isn't in-ring content or take content happening as part of the television broadcast. Sort of sounds like he's bringing the Nitro girls back.
Well, bring something back. Entertain these people. If you're going to have a 3-hour show, you better entertain them. Or at the end of the show, your rating is going to drop to its lowest point. Because Raw did it for years, because always that last segment always did their biggest rating or almost their lowest rating. Because if you're going to bore people at the top of hour 3, that rating is just going to drop lower and lower and lower. So anyway, how many times have we seen Raw, The Rock? He did like a 22 or 23-minute segment on, was it Raw or SmackDown?
Well, it would have been both back in the day.
No, not too long ago. Him and Cody. I mean, when Rock went in there, and it was a 22 or 23-minute segment, but grew and grew and grew because the people, that was their top angle. That was their top push. So the people wanted to see what was going on. And it grew. I think everybody needs to go back and watch WWE during the Attitude Era, because they always they pushed you toward the last.
They could pace a show really well then. It was great pacing. The one thing they did do was really over-rely on 20 minutes promo in-ring to kick off every show for the most part. That got a bit tedious. And that was a copy of the NWO, because they really started it. Anyway, we're going to move on very, very quickly. On one of the last shows we did over 2 months ago, you were right. Britt Baker and Adam Cole did split up.
I'd been reading that. I don't know where that come from. I'll tell you where it didn't come from. Dave Meltzer. I read it somewhere else. Hey, real news seems to escape him. I mean, real news. So, but they broke up. I don't guess they're together anymore, because I think they were living in Florida, and I think Adam Cole moved back home. Mm-hmm. Where's he from?
Is it Pennsylvania somewhere?
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think he's from there, and I think he just packed it up and said, oh, okay, see you later, and he left.
Did you see the photo? Oh, I said you've not been on social media recently, but have you seen the photo of Adam Cole lying on the floor, and he had fake tan, but he forgot to fake tan his knees?
No.
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'll find it for you. I'll just pause.
Let me see this.
1 sec. I can't zoom in anymore. That's really annoying. Can you see his knees?
I see it. He had a knee pad on or something.
Yeah,
That's what it was.
but it's nice that he actually did the little bit in between his knee pad and his boots.
Yep. Yeah,
Ah, dear
that
me.
kind of jumps out at you. But hey, only us would notice that.
Did you have a fake tan?
No, I got too much hair.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, would it just
No,
coagulate?
I never had a fake tan. Never.
Have you ever wrestled someone with a fake tan and it's come off all on you?
Well, probably I didn't notice it. I'm blind as a bat too. So unless somebody told me, no, never have.
Okay, we're going to move on. Now we're going to get into some more spicy Vince McMahon news. A couple of different bits. I know you love this is your favorite topic. I know. Vince McMahon starting a new venture. So this is from multiple sources apparently, but I think it was broken by Mike Johnson of PW Insider that Vince
Hey,
McMahon.
Was it broken by Dave Meltzer?
No, it wasn't. It was by.
Oh, see,
He was by.
okay.
But after the fact, he claimed that he'd heard about it. He is described as being setting up a new entertainment hub company. That's a quote there. That would financially back and develop and produce film and television production. The belief among those we've spoken to or with is that there are no plans for this company to launch anything similar to WWE, and they would instead focus on fiction and non-fiction products. And he's also got Brad Blum, or Bloom, however you pronounce it. He's WWE's former chief operating officer, and he's also got someone else, I cannot find her now, Christine Prouty as well, who was basically WWE's liaison to Hollywood as well. So we've got some Vince McMahon loyalists leaving WWE recently and sort of, hanging around him and hoping for another job, really. What do you think of Vince's chances of even getting this off the ground? Do you think anyone would actually work with him?
Oh, I think they're. You're talking about Hollywood, right?
Hmm. The Harvey
And
Weinstein of WWE is now
no
going to
kidding.
Hollywood.
I mean, if he's gonna he's gonna skip the middle people and go straight to Hollywood. So, and I knew, you knew, everybody knew. Vince is not going to sit up there in his mansion in Stamford, Connecticut, and do nothing.
Dave Meltzer knew that.
Oh yeah, he heard that. He heard that. So, but yeah, and I think Vince, he's going to do what he knows, and let's see where it goes. I think it's a great story, to tell you the truth. And he's going to give a lot of people work who lost work with the WWE when he left. So, but I don't, wait a minute. The big news is not what he's starting. Have they started, you know, the federal government is investigating Vince, and they had put the whole thing on hold. Even Janelle Grant's attorney,
Mm-hmm.
they put it on hold. Is that back?
No, that should be either this month or next month that the civil case or will be continued to be pursued. So they did a 6-month holdback to let the federal government sort of have free reign and Vince. That being said, we've got a new, you have got a new president-elect in Donald Trump. Now, you know that Donald Trump and Vince McMahon are friends. Do you think, with the power that future President Trump will wield, do you think he's going to pull some strings and make this little investigation into Vince McMahon go away?
I think Donald Trump has learned a few things over the years, and I don't think he would even. This is strictly me. I know he likes Vince, but I think Mr. Trump, President Trump, will now maybe go behind the scenes, not him, but some people, and they'll try to get this settled out of court. I don't think he wants to mess with it. Nothing screams bad publicity than to mess with the Vince McMahon issues, and he has a few. Of course, I thought everybody knew that, and I think most people do know it. But I don't think he will try to use presidential authority to help Vince at all.
So
I really don't.
you don't think if he helps Vince, you don't think it would be public then? He wouldn't give like some sort of public pardon. But do you think he may try and help more in a more clandestine way?
I think he would do that, but I don't think he'll do anything that's open and can be reported on. I think it's all undercover. And hey, it's government. I mean, he's not going to do any more than another president who maybe like Vince would do. I don't know. I'm at a loss for this, but I am interested in how this is going to turn out. So I want to tell anybody that's reporting on this, this is what the people want to know. That's what I want to know.
So, okay, hypothetically, and this is something I'm interested in your opinion of, is let's say Donald Trump or just whatever, let's just say the federal investigation goes nowhere and Vince is criminally off the hook. He still has to deal with the civil case with Janelle Grant, but eventually I suspect it probably won't go to court. Most of these civil suits end up getting settled before it reaches court. That being said, in a couple of years, let's say there's no criminal investigation, Janelle Grant is disappeared, she signs a ironclad NDA and is never heard from again, and she's counting in millions from a settlement. Mark Shapiro, who is TKO's chief operating officer, recently had breakfast with Vince McMahon and said it was a very pleasant breakfast and he was very professional and very happy with WWE. If all those things happen, can you see Vince McMahon, A, getting this new entertainment hub business off the ground because there'll be enough time between the accusations and the business going live, and B, do you think he will return to WWE in some capacity?
I'll take the last question first. I don't think he ever comes back to WWE. I don't think that'll ever happen. Vince is 78 years old. His lifespan, I mean, he stays in shape. So I don't think he's on the verge of dying. But I don't think we'll ever see him back in WWE. Who did he meet with, did you say?
He's called Mark Shapiro. He's basically one of TKO's bigwigs. The biggest of the bigwigs.
That was a courtesy call, but they found out a lot. And I think that's going to play into a big deal into what's going to happen. What's going to happen, I don't know, but I'm agreeing with you. I think an out-of-court settlement will be achieved, but we got other people beyond this. And as soon as Janelle Grant is over, I think you're going to have somebody else hopping into the breach, and it's going to continue until, I don't know, till all the people are gone, I guess.
Well, Vince is gone, which is probably the more likely of the two. And funny you should mention people hopping into the breach, legally speaking. And this is something that came out decades ago. But I believe this is in Baltimore, Maryland. And Vincent Kennedy McMahon, Linda McMahon, WWE, TKO Group are all being sued on behalf of 5 survivors of sexual abuse. The survivors, John Doe's 1 to 5, none of them want to be mentioned there, were known within WWE as ring boys. Underage boys hired by the organisation's ringside announcer and ring crew chief, Melvin Phillips Jr., to assist with errands and other tasks in preparation for WWE's wrestling shows. The underage ring boys were groomed, exploited and sexually abused by Phillips, who targeted children from broken homes. His assaults occurred not only at the wrestling venues but also in hotel rooms and other locations where Phillips would shuttle the boys in plain sight. Defendants were fully aware of the systematic and pervasive abuse and did nothing to prevent or stop it. The FBI previously identified at least 10 ring boys abused by Phillips, but there are likely countless others who have suffered in silence for decades. Now, this has been something that's been going on since it's been public since the early 90s. What do you think of this lawsuit now? Because I believe in Maryland there's been a moratorium on historical abuse cases like this, where you can then pursue them, civilly.
So they kicked out. They've actually outlawed the statute of limitations on this, for this, I think.
Not just for this. There's been a moratorium for all these sorts of cases, and the ring boys, as they are known, have sourced I want to say solicitors, but that's a local, a legal firm who specialise in these cases. Levitt and Murphy and Falcon and Murphy. So
that's another out of court settlement. They will come to a figure, say, guys, we'll give you this, take your suit back, and let's continue on. And I think every one of them will accept that if they get millions and millions of dollars. That Vince has, by the way, I don't know how WWE is going to be brought into this, but I think they'll get a nice settlement. I think everything will be just swept under the rug, and it'll go away.
what did you think about that when that first broke in the 90s? Because this was like on Donahue and all the the tabloid talk shows and the news, and it was a pretty big deal, and it was one of the reasons that really hastened the decline of the popularity of wrestling in the early 90s. Where were you? Were you USWA or Puerto Rico or WCW at the time when you first heard this? And what did you make of this? Did it ring true to you?
Oh, it rang true because if you're in wrestling, you're going to hear about Vince. I don't care where you were working, somebody is going to filter down the rumors. And of course, you're getting half of the information, half info, half rumor. But yeah, I heard about it. Everybody heard about it. I wasn't there then. I didn't get there to
Five.
95,
Yep.
96. And I think Mel Phillips wasn't there when I was there. I never met him.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they thought they had gotten rid of it, I guess. But yes, I knew about it. Everybody knew about it.
Were you aware of like the extent of Mel Phillips' predatory behaviour? Because in the suit, I hate to say I've not read the full suit. I've got the highlights or the lowlights, as it were. And one of them was that not only was he courting young boys at shows, he was actually prowling the streets, just looking for young lads like playing baseball in the streets or in a park or something, and saying, "Hey, I'm so and so from the WWF. I bet you're all big wrestling fans. Would you?" You know what I mean? It's like these kids are like 12, 13, 14, and the most famous ring boy was Tom Cole, who I believe is no longer with us. I believe. I'm quite sure about that. His brother Lee Cole does a podcast sort of in his memory, I guess, now. And I think he watches the show. But he made some terrible accusations, and now they've really been backed up for like nearly a dozen more. And there are many more out there that Mel Phillips, a foot fetishist, I believe he was, not in like a more harmless Tony Atlas way. It's crazy.
The Tony Atlas thing made me laugh a little bit. But Lee Cole, I'm sorry about what happened to your brother, and my apologies for whatever that means. But anybody that's been harmed by this, it's not funny. It's a sad state of affairs. But I think Tom Cole, let's throw him in there. This settlement or this suit, does that include Tom Cole, even though he's moved on?
Well, we don't know John Doe's 1 to 5. We don't know if he's named.
Okay, but I think he should be if he was. And you say Lee Cole has a podcast?
I believe so, yeah. I don't know what it's called. I'm sorry. It might be... I don't know. I don't want to have a hazard a guess, but he is out there talking about it as well. So, that being said, yeah, Mel Phillips. I mean, of all the oddballs you've met in pro wrestling, I know you never met him, but I mean, that's got to be among the top of just the sort of most deviant of behaviour.
Well, I've seen some deviant behavior in the wrestling business, believe me. But see, the wrestling business is a microcosm of American society. You'll have some guys, you have guys like that, and you have gay guys, and you have this guys, and those people, and so it's no different than regular society. But it's only to where we hold their feet to the fire and say, "Hey, if you get caught, we're going to punish you." Because to make anything stick, if I was a defense attorney, which I suggested earlier that and you said you studied law, You got to make it personal. See, Tom Cole to me is a name. I didn't know Tom Cole. I don't know Lee Cole. But if that had been my brother or my son or my cousin, I would take more of an interest in it because now it's personal and I may have seen or saw what it did to him. So if you can make that, it's like in any criminal case. If you can make it personal and make every juror, make it personal to them, then you may have a verdict that you can live with.
Yeah, he's wrestling with the devil with Lee Cole. I'm really plugging this podcast, but there you go. There's a free plug for you there, fella. And the lawsuit essentially stems from the idea that Vince McMahon and WWE knew far more than what they were letting on at the time, as far as reviews. And quite frankly, a lot of the wrestlers heard rumblings, and there's nothing concrete. Apparently, the FBI back in the early '90s actually had a very telling video of Mel Phillips playing with one of the kids' feet, or just being too overly friendly with these like prepubescent or just barely pubescent boys as well. But it wasn't proof enough. It could have been interpreted a different way, or just roughhousing or being overly friendly, and not of a sexual nature. So it's never went, and he never got arrested, I believe. He never got tried. So he sort of got away with it scot-free in that sense. We're going to move on.
Phillips, is he still alive?
Oh, he's brown bread, that guy. He's dead as you like. And good riddance. Fucking pedo. Right, let's go. Todd Grisham. It's Christian. Now, this is just one of those odd stories that came out that I wanted to include because it involves Vince McMahon. Former WWE announcer Todd Grisham responded to a Twitter post that mentioned what an awful job that he did announcing Christian, Jay Rezzo, Christian Cage, whatever you want to call him. He was Christian Cage in TNA when you were there, when he returned to WWE. Grisham responded that it wasn't his call whatsoever. So basically, whatever it was, he just went, and here's Christian. It was just like completely anticlimactic. Todd Grisham says, right before I walked out to the gorilla position before the show, Vince McMahon called me over and said, when Christian walks out, don't get excited at all. Simply say, it's Christian, and that's it. Understand me? And then Todd said, yes, sir. Why would Vince McMahon try and do down the return of Christian after... Was he pissed off that he was in TNA for all those years and did well?
Hey, there is no interpreting Vince. He probably says he had a thought that going through his head, he thought was a great idea at the moment. And then he told Todd, what's his name, Christian?
Grisham, yeah.
Grisham, to say that. And then after he said it, he didn't like it. So they got rid of him then, right?
No, they didn't get rid of Todd at the time. No. He wasn't fired for it. It's just one of those things where they made it as Christian's return to WWE as anticlimactically as humanly possible.
No explaining it. I have no idea.
Does Vince like to rib people in that kind of way?
Vince's ribs aren't funny only to him. Vince's ribs are mostly, he loves poop jokes, shit jokes, and anything to do with that, he finds hilarious. Why, I don't know. But that was always the down low on him, is he loves butt jokes or anything to do with the rear end. He loves that. So I can't explain it. It's just Vince.
A Reddit post said, in defense of Todd Grisham, we were all led to believe Christian was returning at the Royal Rumble and instantly getting into a feud with Jeff Hardy, which would be close to main event level status. And then he shows up on WWE's version of ECW to interrupt Jack Swagger, who was calling out Hornswoggle.
That makes a lot of sense. That's a big misdirection, but did it work? Is what I want to know. Did it work?
Yeah, he's still employed, so it didn't do him too badly now.
Okay.
Now, next thing. Did you watch the one video I sent you today? It was I keep calling him Killer Kross, Karrion Kross.
I didn't watch that one.
I'll make you watch it next week because he keeps putting these videos out and it's basically showing Karrion Kross has got more personality sat in his hotel room than he does on TV.
Oh, I bet he does. On TV, they have almost depersonalize the guy. I mean, he speaks in a monotone, and there's nothing exciting about him at all. See, when I first saw him and the girl, what's the girl's name?
I just had it in my mind. Anyway,
okay,
I'll have it in a second.
Your brain dead.
Yeah,
but
baby brain, baby.
I said he's dead on arrival.
Scarlett.
Yeah, that's her name.
Bordeaux.
But
that's it.
But I listened to him, and there was just, not just me. I think a wrestling fan would say, I don't know about this guy because he's not really controversial. TikTok is not controversial. He's done nothing really. So, but I did see some of his videos. He is fairly entertaining. So it's like if Chris Jericho went there and they wanted to make him something other than Chris Jericho, he wouldn't have got over. Chris Jericho was Chris Jericho. He knew what worked for him before. So, but to his defense, he went to the creative team and pitched all these ideas and events. Therefore, the Chris Jericho that we saw was the Chris Jericho that he's still doing today. And he's got 4 million followers, so something worked for him. But I think maybe what's the guy we're talking about?
Yeah, Karrion Kross. See, so you can't even remember his name.
I think he needs to go to the creative team and pitch it. And don't pitch it 1 week, pitch it again and pitch it again. Pitch it again till they tell you to shut the F up and get out of the room. And see what happens. And maybe one time they say, brother, why don't we try it just to see what it does? And maybe that's all it takes. So my advice to the guy is keep pitching till they tell you to get the hell out of there.
Let's watch the video. I mean, we've talked about it. Well, you've talked about it for 2 minutes now, and you've not even seen it. So let's. I'll just pause and I'll bring it up 1 sec. Okay, we're back.
Babe, you won't believe what happened.
What?
Miz just got kidnapped by the Wyatts.
Like, they took him?
Yeah. We gotta go.
Well, how long ago did they take him?
I don't know, like 20 minutes or so?
20 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, by now he's definitely dead.
Babe, it's not funny.
Well, it's funny a little bit. He's dead for sure. I'm not going anywhere.
Babe, we have to go help him.
I gotta put my jacket on. You really want to leave?
I mean, we probably should, right?
100% dead, though.
I mean, yeah, but we should try, right?
Oh, God.
Come on, let's go.
Who are they talking about?
Oh, The Miz.
Oh. Hey, that was more interesting than what he's doing on TV now. It really is.
Have you watched any wrestling in 2 months?
No.
Have you not even watched SmackDown? Did you watch one SmackDown?
I watched one SmackDown. I think I watched it last week. I got to catch up on this week's. What are they? They put him with those other two guys. What are they called?
Oh, it's like Arkham and Razor or something like that.
Yeah.
Authors of Pain.
Authors of Pain. That screams like, get out of here. I don't even know why they put them. Hey, listen, if we knock them too much, they're going to say that we're against them.
Yeah, but Triple H will then might send you $5,000.
They might. So
yeah, you never know.
But they could do more with what's his face and Charlotte.
He's been on TV for years, and you still can't remember
the name. I can't. I've been hit on the head a couple million times, so excuse me for that. But hell, I'm older than water, so it can be excused a little bit, I think.
We shall move on. The Undertaker responds to calling today's wrestlers soft. This is from right up from Inside the Ropes. Despite the fact that many now see the WWE Hall of Famer as another disgruntled veteran who is not happy with how the business has evolved, The Undertaker gave his side of the story. That's the big thing. This is the quote from Mr. Taker. Especially with the wrestling people and wrestling fans, everything feels like if I criticise you about something publicly, it's a personal attack. That's how people see it. But really, it's not a personal attack. I'm giving my opinion on how I would have done it or what worked for me. That doesn't make it the right way, it's just right for me. Now, one of The Undertaker's comments that drew the most backlash and ridicule came about when he appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast. This is old, but he must have made these comments recently, and stated that the stars of today are more obsessed with video games, adding that they were soft, and back in his day the wrestlers carried around guns and knives to handle their business. Admitting that soft was not the right term, The Undertaker did take issue to the passive-aggressive replies on social media, adding that the stars of today should have bigger priorities. Here's another quote. In wrestling and maybe in general, if you criticise something or say something, people take it personally. Imagine that. Maybe soft wasn't the right choice of words. I was just starting to talk and came out of my shell then. I didn't realise how far Joe Rogan's podcast would reach and who would be watching. What killed me, though, was the passive-aggressive tweets from other wrestlers. I was like, oh, God, you've got to be kidding me. You know you need to get off Twitter and focus on why they're not drawing instead. So there you go. But there I go again. I can't help myself. I love you guys when I offer critiques. People think I'm attacking them personally. It's just my opinion. It's for okay, right? There's two things.
Isn't Undertaker saying the same thing we're saying? Said the same thing.
What are we saying?
Oh, it's not the wrestling, and it's this. You got to tell the story, and and what he's saying, he's comparing wrestlers today, the people getting in today, are more interested in other things. They're interested in social media more than they are trying to convey a character on TV. But he said the same thing we were saying. But I wonder what Meltzer say anything about that.
There's only two people on Twitter, I refuse to call it X, Twitter, that actually have social media work for them. Maybe three. Drew McIntyre, MJF, maybe CM Punk. They all use social media properly. They use it to further interest in themselves and their on-screen characters at the same time. And pretty much nobody else does that. And it's such... If you look at social media, it's just one giant cancer for the most part, in my opinion. But the fact is that it's also an incredible tool to, for lack of a better term, get yourself over as well.
Okay, Joe Rogan has like 10 million followers, subscribers to his podcast. And he does a great show. And I'm glad he did one with Undertaker, because, and I haven't heard that, but I'm going to go back and I'm going to listen to that. And I'm going to see what Mr. Rogan has to say, because I think he has a great podcast. And every time he has a guest on there, they will pull the clips out, and they're doing, and you know more about this than I do. How many hits will he have at the end of a week?
Oh, I don't follow Joe Rogan
200 million.
Millions upon millions. Millions upon millions.
Yes. Yeah. So.
Even more than us, Dutch.
No, it's impossible.
I know.
But here's Undertaker, and people are blasting him.
Well, exactly why. And this is people within the business, with Undertaker calling today's wrestlers on the whole too soft. And his example was they all want to sit around playing games instead of bringing guns and knives to to the locker room instead. Are wrestlers too soft these days for you?
Well, it's a different breed. Things are going to change. And I don't think they can take criticism like the guys in my day did. Hell, that's all we got anyway, was criticism. Not nobody said, "Oh, you're no good bastard." This, you were supposed to do that. You're supposed to make people dislike you. But when you get them to dislike you on social media, that's different. Because unless you're getting paid for the clicks, you're not getting paid off ticket sales, pay-per-view sales, or gimmick sales, or anything else. You're getting just paid off the clicks. Yeah, I think it's just a different breed. I don't know if they're too soft, but, and I think maybe if Mark had taken a little more time, he could explain himself. But yeah, soft is, I think, is a good term for it. I wouldn't disagree with the term.
On the Stevie Richards show, cheap plug, that I also host and YouTube and blah, blah, blah. It's doing very well, by the way, Dutch, before you ask. It's doing great, in fact. It's doing really well. We talked about locker room etiquette back in the day, and some of it I was listening to was just like, I could never put up with that in a million years. And Stevie gave an example. He gave a lot of examples, but one he told me was that Dean Malenko, in the early days in ECW, I think, literally kicked him out of a chair so that he could sit on it. And there were plenty of other chairs available. But apparently back in the day, if a veteran walked in, you gave in the chair, even if you were in like an empty church of like 200 cover of pews. Like, was that how it always was back in the day? You always let a veteran have your chair, even if there was plenty of others?
Well, if you were respectful, you would. And I don't think Dean, not Dean, but
Stevie.
who's the guy you're talking?
Stevie.
Oh, I'm blasted today.
First show back, baby.
I don't think Stevie was intending to be disrespectful. Yeah, that could happen. He kicked the chair out and let me have the chair, kid. And it was just one of the things done. And I'm sure Stevie got up there and laughed it off because Dean was a veteran, Stevie wasn't. So it's a different level meeting up. And nobody said anything to Dean about it. He just did it. So now if he'd have come in and kicked the veteran out of the chair, that'd been different. That would have been a fight. That would have been a show of disrespect, and you'd have had a fight. Because guys used to, I've seen a lot of fights in the dressing room. But I didn't grow up with that. I didn't come up with that. Most guys were respectful to each other. I know I always was. But I was always respectful to the younger guys too. I heard a booker one time, he just cussed this kid out one time. And there was Bill Dundee. He cussed Jimmy Cornette out like a dog because Jimmy was just starting and didn't know. And when he got to the back, Bill just lit into him. Blah, 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 you stupid mother effer, you know. And I told Bill later, I said, Bill, what was the purpose of that? Well, he needs to learn, motherfucker. I said, Bill, he didn't do it on purpose. He did it because he didn't know any better. So now you got to tell him what he did wrong. And instead of embarrassing him in front of the whole dressing room, you need to call him aside and tell him what he did wrong. But what he did was he embarrassed Jimmy, and I felt sorry for Jimmy. And Jimmy had only been in the business like 3 weeks or 2 weeks or maybe no more than a month. But you got to tell people, if you're in a position as a booker, you have to tell them what they did wrong in terms that doesn't embarrass them in front of other people, and so they'll understand it. And Bill, but to Bill's defense, he may have been having a bad day. He may have had something else happen. I don't know. But I found that I didn't like it, and I said something about it. If it had been me, I said, Jimmy, come here, blah, 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 blah. Don't do this, don't do that. And I think you'll find it works a lot better. And I think he would have taken notice of that more than the big ass cussing he took.
An ass cussing?
Yes.
Good man. Okay, there's got to be like some sort of happy medium there, because the reason I brought up the Dean Malenko example was just because there's just that's unnecessary, and it just doesn't do anything for anybody. And then, as you say, Bill Dundee, just reaming out Jim Cornette was not the right way to go. We can all agree. It's not constructive, and it just makes people feel bad, and the message gets lost. But is there some sort of balance where what's missing from a wrestling locker room now that you wish was still there back in your day? Playing cards?
Oh, playing cards, and they banned that too.
Who did?
Because, well, a lot of promoters banned it. You couldn't. But you know what would happen? They'd start playing cards, and I forgot what they play. Crazy, I forgot what the game.
It was usually crib, wasn't it, with the board and the pegs?
No, not
Cribbage.
that. It was. I can't think of it right now. But a lot of guys would miss their entrance because they were about ready to win this game. And one more card. Get in the goddamn ring, you idiot. Oh, God. And he'd throw his cards down. sometimes if he was going to lose, he just turned the whole board over, and it would all. And the Bill Watts stopped it. I think Jerry Jarrett stopped it at one time. You couldn't play cards in Mid Atlantic when I was there. They just banned it because because the guy's missing the cues and everything else.
So what would you bring back then? So if locker rooms these days or wrestlers are too soft these days, what would you bring back from the old school to toughen them up a bit?
Well, like I said, it's a different era, and I don't know if you can bring it back. It is what it is, and however you go into a dressing room, whatever the vibe is in that dressing room, that's what you got to go by. And I don't know what I would bring back, but I don't see anything really. It doesn't bother me if a guy's soft anyway. He wants to play a game. That's his business. I stay out of his business and want him to stay out of mine. So most of the dressing rooms, I think, and WWE, they want you to work on your matches, and I think the guys do that, especially in WWE. Those are highly, highly choreographed matches, and you don't just sit down and we'll call it in the ring. No, they got to work all this stuff out, and it takes them basically. They work out the routine, and it takes them basically maybe a couple of hours to get to the point. Then they go to the ring, work it out, and then they're talking it over, even going to the ring. So I think they have the intensity in the matches, and I think that's what's missing. Because a lot of guys just go out there back in the day, they would just whatever happens, happens. But we didn't have TV like WWE. You can't do that now because now you've got a worldwide audience watching you, and they want it to be good. They want it to be crisp, want it to be smooth. And I think that's maybe one of the things that was missing back in the day. I wouldn't bring that back. I think it's actually improved a little bit.
We should. I'm just looking at the time then. Goldberg's announced his retirement match, but do you know what? We could just... No, go on, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about that.
Why not? Yes, Goldberg, he was recently really pissed off at Vince McMahon for not booking him in a retirement match that he was promised. He has now got a retirement match in 2025, and it is against... Do you know who it's against?
Gunther.
Gunther, indeed.
I hate that.
You what?
I hate it.
Okay.
First of all, it's a retirement match. I don't think anything is going to satisfy Goldberg in a retirement match. He's got to go over. But they can't afford Gunther to lose to, what's his face? Oh, man, I'm gone today. So you should win your retirement match on the way out. Gunther to now is in a position to where he can draw some money. And they haven't really stopped the angle between him and Cody. And I think that's who he'll be switching the title to. But I don't like that idea at all.
So you're saying that Goldberg, because I think in Japan maybe it's a sort of different thing where, you know, you almost go on a tour and you put a lot of people over in that respect. But is it Sting won his final match recently? Not this year, I think. Yep. Yeah, this year. Mm-hmm. I can't think of any others. I'm sure there are millions. I'm the same as you. I can't think of anything. But
my question is,
would the fans reject Goldberg losing?
Would they reject him losing?
Yeah, would it ruin their night if Goldberg lost? Or here's another thing: who would they cheer for? Because Gunther's sort of in between at the moment, heading towards babyface.
I actually think they would like Gunther more. I really do, because he's changed his approach here a little bit. Who did he shake hands with Cody?
Yes, I actually went to the house show in Manchester as well, and he and Cody and Tom Aspinall, who's the UFC interim heavyweight champion, all had a photo opportunity in the ring together, which I thought was funny. But yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, he just lost, didn't he, in Saudi Arabia to Cody?
Well, that's one thing. That's an active member of your roster. Now, unless they think that's going to help Gunther, I don't know how a loss would help Gunther at all. And watch his face.
Goldberg.
Oh man, Goldberg. Man, I've been hit on the head too many times. Goldberg. I don't think a victory is going to help him. It's his last match. But the whole thing about your last match is you win. Everybody's happy. Everybody's slapping you on your back. Great career, great career. But that's going to inhibit the fans' response to Goldberg's winning, and that's why I question it. I don't know the rationale behind it, and I may not even want to know. But if he does lose, I guarantee you they paid him an arm and a leg to do it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, I know you maybe you've met Goldberg once or something like that, so I know you're not in the best position to ask, but do you think Goldberg has enough of an ego where he would say, no, I must win this?
Oh, he probably got the ego because he started and they gave him an ego unintentioned for giving him those minute wins and those 30-second wins, and it was week after week after week after week. That's why he never learned to work. You put Goldberg in a 10-minute match, he's going to be gassed anyway. Now, if they put him in a match, unless he trains cardio for a pretty good while, I don't think he could go 10 minutes without blowing up and sucking wind. So, when is this match supposed to happen?
It's going to be early next year. It is 2025. It could be Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure it's been mentioned exactly where. Okay. I was thinking, do you know who would be better is someone who the fans really hate, obviously, because then they will cheer Goldberg and want to see. I was thinking maybe Solo Sikoa. He'd be someone who no one could support, and he'd give a good enough match, and people would go home happy from that.
That would be much better because they would they hate him anyway. They don't like him, and they could craft a finish that makes everybody look good, really. But with Gunther, I'm thinking how they could craft this finish to make Gunther actually look good, even in a loss. I don't know how they can do that unless they got something that I don't know about. But then again, I got to see it to tell you if I like it or not. I don't know what they got.
Okay, we've got two more bits of news, and this is a political one slightly, but it involves Hulk Hogan, and it's Hulk Hogan versus T-shirt, so bear with me 1 second. Did you see this?
Oh, yeah, I did see this.
Oh, well, we're going to watch it again, because I didn't watch it all the way through, so I'd saved myself for weeks for this, so... Brother, let me tee it up for you. Okay, and we're back. I've had to mute this because it's got Real American playing in the background, but this is Hulk Hogan. I'm sorry for the audio listeners. Tell us what we're seeing, Dutch, for the audio listeners.
Well, there is Hulk Hogan making his appearance, and this is during the Republican convention, right?
I'm not sure it's is it the convention? It's just a public rally at Madison Square Garden.
Oh, okay, maybe. But he Hulk Hogan. To me, this is what helped get Trump elected. A lot of people may disagree with me, but America was looking at Hulk Hogan.
He's doing the Trump dance.
Yeah, he's doing it, and I think this actually, I don't think it helped Trump. It damn sure didn't hurt him. You're putting somebody out there, and regardless of how you feel about Hulk, he is an icon. Regardless of what they've charged him with, or this, that, and the other, people have short memories anyway. But it shows you Trump didn't run from him at all, and he said, "Hey, can you help me?" And because Trump he's a wrestling fan too. And I was there when Trump came in, WWE, and I've told the story before. I went out and did an interview, and Trump came back through the curtain. I was sitting there with Jack watching the rest of the show, and Trump saw me, but I thought Trump had already gone. He doubled back when he saw me and come up and he shook my hand. He says, "Tremendous, tremendous." He says everything twice anyway. So he told me tremendous interview, and he enjoyed it, and he liked it. So.
Well, he's been elected president twice as well. Let's just review very quickly the T-shirt. Here's the problem. He's wearing 2 T-shirts, and I think he sort of dug into both of them.
Yeah.
He's still got the other one. Like, look at this. He's still got the other one in his hand.
Yeah.
So he could, if that had gone any further, he would have had to have done all of that topless.
Oh, yeah. Well, he got it off, and now he's doing the dance. So he's proud of himself.
I want to pause it on a really... forget it. That'll do. Right. We shall move on to our last bit of news. And I don't know, this might have gone over the heads of a lot of people. I'm not sure how many people actually caught this. And this sort of goes to the mind of someone who I'm not sure was all there. But apparently there was a test to see if he was, cognizant enough to be left alone with his own money, and it turns out he was. So he was happy. He was allowed to spend it however he wished. A fake Alexa Bliss account steals $1 million or thereabouts from one person. So WWE superstar Alexa Bliss's likeness was used in a lucrative scam with a 79-year-old man draining his retirement savings and some of his granddaughter's college fund after he was led to believe he developed a romantic relationship with the wrestler online. A man named Chris, I've not even attempted this name, Mancinelli? Let's go for that. Revealed his father, Alfred, was convinced he was interacting with the real 33-year-old Bliss. Mancinelli explained Alfred had a history of dealing with scammers as he opened his heart, quote, to them, allowing for him to be manipulated with sob stories. Mancinelli said his father's dealings with fakes got worse during the pandemic, and by 2021 his $900,000 nest egg was decreased to $128,000, and he believes the majority of that went to a Bliss imposter. According to a report, Alfred's conversations with Alexa, quote-unquote, which is the fake one, included claims of Vince McMahon humiliating her after refusing his advances and hospitalizations due to menstrual periods. The imposter never communicated via audio or video. Alexa, quote-unquote, asked Alfred to pay for expenses, and he obliged. I've got a tiny bit more to read about that, but wow. They actually did a medical test on him. He went to a doctor's, he agreed to do a competency hearing or test or whatever, and he passed it. So there was no legal recourse to stop him from spunking his money up the wall on a fake account.
Do they know where the money went?
Yeah, to a fake account. I don't even think they can legally get it back.
But a fake account, can they get that back? They can't get it back, even if they could. I mean, if he had failed the physical, the mental test, I don't think they can get it back anyway. That's why people need to watch where their money goes.
This fella's son, Chris, was noticing it happening, and he apparently kept confronting his father. But I mean, in this day and age, I mean, not to sound... I love, like, Scammer Payback and Kit Boga, their YouTube shows where they deal with scammers and they pretend to be old women or men or whatever and basically expose how these scams happen. But this is pretty astonishing because...
This is...
Alexa Bliss, on her official social media, has said, "This is the only thing I have. There are lots of scammers of me. Don't fall for it." And apparently this guy is being shown this stuff, that she's married, and I think she got a child with a husband, and, must be making millions with WWE, and there's all this proof. And yet this guy, who has passed a competency hearing, won't have it.
Wait a minute, where was this guy? In the U.S.?
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Well... my condolences to the son and to the guy.
He's dead now. He actually died recently.
Well, nothing I can say to change it. I mean, I hate it happen, but it does happen, and people know the scammers are out there, but he had to have a little bit of a mental issue. How long did this go on? Like, I had to go on a year or so, right?
Yeah, it went for a while. So never communicated via audio or video, but drained the Alfred's, that's the person's, Chris's father, who drained his account, transferring his last $100,000 into another bank account, which resulted in a lawsuit from his son to actually stop him from doing this. And then A month later, Alfred's remaining savings had vanished. Mancinelli believed if Alfred hadn't passed away following a post-fall neck surgery, he would have continued to find a way to help out the fake Alexa Bliss.
Yep, I'm sure he would. So sometimes it just shows you how desperate people are for attention. How old's a guy? 70 what?
79.
Well, he's in that stage of life that everything is not clear to him. I'm getting there too, as you can see here on
Yeah,
this
but
show.
you can't remember Goldberg's name. You're not giving away your life savings to, obviously, someone who's fake scam, you know.
I won't give nothing to know. I will, and I have donated money on GoFundMe to certain things. I donated to Kevin, but I don't know, man. There's nothing I can say that's going to change this, or my condolences is all I can say.
Yeah. So we're going to end it there then. Thank you everybody so much for watching. We've been gone for 2 months, so we hope that if you have, you've already got to the end of this and you've tuned in and hopefully enjoyed it as well. So on that basis, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say thank you one more time for all the generous souls who donated, shared, sent well wishes, and they did it the thousands. The thousands, Dutch. I mean, if that doesn't warm your heart and let you know you are valued.
It really does, because in my wildest dream, I didn't even think that many people would even respond to me, let alone donate money to my cause. But it is appreciated more than you know, and I can't thank the people enough. So thank you very much. But it also showed me that people legitimately like me, even though all that hard work I did being a heel, getting them to hate me, all of a sudden it was wasted, and now people like me. But I appreciate that.
I thought you were going to break into, they love me, they really love me. Hey, there you go. Well, once again, well done. It broke. I mean, you thought it might get 5 or 10,000, and we're at nearly 100. I wouldn't even want to plug it again because it's brought in so much. But just in case you do, I'll put a link in the description. And basically you can just find it on Google, Dirty Dutch Mantell GoFundMe, and it will come up the very first one.
It's not actually that Dirty Dutch Mantell. It's Amanda Moore.
I'm sorry, it's Amanda Moore.
It's in my daughter's name. I didn't do it. She did it.
Is she going to go back to work then? Eventually, after looking after you, because obviously the money's. I think we should tell people what the money's going to go towards. It's going to go to continued care for Dutch's wife. It's going to go to continued medical bills for Dutch as well. It might go to. Do you know what else it's going to be going to? I mean, it's not going to a 2-week holiday in Tahiti or anything. It's going to be put to actual use.
Hell, I can't go to 7-Eleven down the street, let alone Tahiti. But yeah, it's just to keep us alive, keep us going, and hopefully I get better or something happens to one of us. So, and my daughter took 4 months off from work, and she's on that family leave program that you get a portion of what you would make, but that's expired now. So we're hitting a stretch to where without the GoFundMe money, I would really be up, what they call it, Schitt's Creek.
Mm-hmm.
It's where I would be.
You'd be galloping up Diarrhea Drive without a saddle, which is the alternative way of saying it. Yeah, once again, thank you so much for everyone. Hopefully you will stick with us with the show, with the podcast. And this is going to be out on, I believe, Tuesday. So we won't have another episode on Thursday because it's just too close and, there's not really any news to react to. So we will see you again next Tuesday for Ask Dutch Anything. I'm keeping the burps in now. Ask Dutch Anything, and then we will see you again for the main show, Storytime with Dutch Mantell, episode 118, next Friday. So that being said, thank you everybody for so much once again, and Dutch, we the people.
We the people.